Hello, hello, hello. This is my era. This is your boy Kuda Biza right here. And thank you so much for everything that you guys do in our Go Getter community. And, I have a special guest that I'm going to bring in shortly. This guest is my financial guru. So whenever I have a need finance wise, this is where I go. So I'm really trusting you. I'm putting you in the hands that I trust personally with Rob Gill. And, in the Go Getter community, we've been seeing a lot of questions around money and, a lot of questions about 401ks, what to do with real estate, what to do with regards to insurance. Is it term, whole life, universal? What direction to go? So I thought it would be great for me to bring Rob, and he can be able to share with you guys a lot about finance and a lot of these questions that a lot of people in the community have. So a little bit about Rob. Rob, he is the founder of Epic Financial Strategies, and they do a lot from wealth management. They help you with insurance if you're looking for insurance. They're fiduciaries on their staff, and that's a very special, important term that everybody should be aware of. Mainly because there's a difference between just a financial advisor who can also be a broker, but a fiduciary is someone who has the fiduciary duty to look out for your best interests. So that's one of the reasons why I love, Rob and his team at Epic Wealth Management. So I'm going to bring Rob in to the mix. And Rob, how are you, man?
Kuda, what's up? Happy Fun Friday, and thank you so much. And if you hear the train, we like to call it the money train because we're located here in Red Bank. And if you hear the money train going by, I'll make sure I go on mute. Happy Friday, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, man. So do you want to maybe share a little bit about you and Epic?
Sure. Thank you. So I had the good fortune of having tremendous coaches in my life, as you know. We share some of those coaches, Kuda. And what Epic is, it stands for Empower, Protect, Integrate, and Coordinate. And our number one goal at all times, once we understand what each individual's core values are specific to them, we want to be able to customize plans accordingly. So our goal is to create the optimal amount of wealth with little or no additional out-of-pocket cost through integration and coordination over somebody's full financial world. So as we've really begin to develop a one-stop shop financial planning wellness center for either a business owner, a corporate executive, an entrepreneur, or an individual, they land on either side or both sides of our plate, meaning we have a insurance division, which is, life, health, disability, P&C, auto, all the different insurances you can think of. And we also, down the hall, we have a wealth management fiduciary arm division. Now, I'm not a fiduciary. There's about, 5 of them down the hall. And in that space, we want to make sure that the right hand is always talking to the left hand. And through creating clients' own personal financial website and connecting all the professionals, we like to put the client in the position of empowerment through education and being able to make decisions based on logic, math, and science, not emotional timidity or gut level hunch. And Kuda, as you know, if you have an economic philosophy in advance of, a virus that comes out once every 100 years, then you're easily able to handle that storm when it comes your way when the world is in full panic mode.
Great. So, Rob, I just want to share a little video of the first time we met.
Yes.
And it's about a year now. So watch this because I think you're going to like it.
My season! It's my time!
It's my time!
I will not be denied!
I will not be denied!
Give me your fear! Give me your limits! I'll give you results!
Give me your fear! Give me your limits! Give me results!
Wow! Right? It brings so many memories. So
I got the chills. I know. Chills.
So this was in Las Vegas, August 2019. That was my first Tony Robbins event.
Yep.
And for full disclosure, Tony Robbins is a business partner to the business that I co-founded called Non-Believable.
Yep.
And he and his team invited me to Business Mastery because, he was said like, hey, you're now part of the family. You need to come and experience a Tony Robbins event. And they got me front row seats to Business Mastery. And what I didn't know was that I was sitting next to a financial legend, right? And that's Rob Gill, who I had met a couple of weeks earlier in, New York at an event called Weekend of Bliss through another Tony Robbins ecosystem. And sitting next to Rob is Sean Callaghy, founder of Callaghy Law Firm and also the I'm Blinded movement. And next to Sean is Chris Crone, a real estate guru. So I was really, sitting with the lions. But what I didn't know was that over 12 months, Rob, you're going to be very integral in my life and the things that I'm doing. So I just want to, take you back to August 2019 in Las Vegas. What has happened ever since then for Epic? Because I think you guys have gained a lot of momentum as a business.
Yeah. First of all, that video gave me the chills. And I remember that when I was taking the video, I already lost my voice. I couldn't even talk anymore. And to my immediate right, as you know, was Sean, who is my mentor coach, the man that has really kind of taken me to where we are now. And obviously he connected me with Chris Crone, and Chris Crone, the mighty Chris Crone, as we like to say, has really shown us the scientific map on how to create massive acceleration while we're doing the complementary strategies on people that we've never met before. When I look at Sean is just like the brainchild of something that, 3, 5, 10 years from now, based on these ecosystem mergers and creating these partnerships, you're looking at a $1 billion mindset with Sean. So back to that point, though, what's interesting is, as you know, my partner, Eddie Gartner, Eddie is the gentleman that, with me, Epic Financial Strategies, we co-founded this, let's call this marketing brand, right? That leads down the two different paths, which would be the insurance path and the wealth management path. What was interesting, though, a few months before that event in August, Sean Callaghy did his own 3-day beta test immersion where it was just like 15 of us in a room, and one of them was Eddie. And Sean kept talking about ecosystem mergers, Chris Crone, ecosystem merger, and he mentioned Chris's name over and over. And Eddie's a genius, right? So Eddie's the kind of guy that could see a finished product, sees, he sees things that other people don't see. And he was just going on YouTube and he typed in Chris's name just to see what the big thing was about. And all of a sudden, Chris, who specializes, as we all know, in peak performance coaching and real estate, was doing a video on life insurance and using that as a financial tool. We like to call it a Swiss Army knife. And what was interesting is he was mentioning it. So when you look at the video the first time, you would assume, wow, he must be partners with somebody. Now, I knew Chris at that point from Sean. So I called him. I'm like, hey, who do you do business with in this space? He was like, nobody. I've been looking for 10 years. And next thing you know, a month later, we were speaking on Chris's stage in Utah. 2 months later, you, I, and Chris and Sean were in the first row of Tony at an event. By the way, for all the good folks listening, Kuda Biza won the Business Mastery event at Tony Robbins, which is a prestigious award. It's almost like, if I could give equivalent to a high school or let's say a college athlete that's about to go pro, and that business or that athlete's going to be a lottery pick. Well, the business Non-Believables, at least in the space of Tony Robbins, they believe that there's a winning lottery ticket there. And that's awesome. And I'm so grateful to be on this call.
Thank you so much. Well, the reason why you're on this call today is obviously we have the brand This Is My Era, which I co-founded with my wife, Alexander Stein, a few other folks. And we have a community. Shout out to Ruth. Yeah. We have a community called the Goal Getter community, which is our private online community of people who've bought our 90-day planner. And in the community, we've just been talking about, money. And one of the things that came up were a lot of questions. And, I thought it would be great to bring to the community someone who's in the financial space, someone who I trust with my own money to really manage it for me so that the community can learn. So the first question, Rob, that we got is how can I maximize my 401k? Right? Are they thinking about going aggressive or like to be a little bit more less aggressive? So for someone who has a 401k, what would you tell them to do in terms of maximizing it? Or even, is the 401k the right thing to have right now, given all the uncertainty? So what's your take on that?
Two great questions. And what I like to do when I hear questions like that, it always comes down to the individual, right? So if I was to speak in global terms, and philosophically, of course, if I would take a look at, is there a company match on the 401k? What does that look like, right? Is it a 50% match? Is it a 100% match? And remember, the 401k, if you're under 50, if it's a traditional 401k, the max contribution is $19,500. What's important for us whenever we talk any kind of money and strategies and everything else is education. So what's usually put out there is, hey, you get a tax savings on a 401k. The truth is it's a tax postponement that results later on in ordinary tax distribution. So it's important to know that if you're going to put money into a 401k, you don't, it reduces your taxable income for that year, which means you pay less in taxes. However, when you take that money out of the 401k, it's not taxed at long-term capital gains, it's taxed at ordinary income. So for example, if you're 30 and you put $10,000 a year away for 30 years, which is $300,000, and it earns, let's say 5, 6, 7%, it might be worth anywhere between 800 and $1 million, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But when you start taking distributions, every dollar is taxed at ordinary income, right? Meaning if you take 80 grand out a year, 80,000 would be taxed at 20 or 30%. Now you put 10,000 away each year. So if you're in let's say a 20% tax bracket on 10,000, that means you save $2,000, right? If you do that for 30 years, you'll save $2,000 a year for 30 years, assuming taxes stay the same. And that would be $60,000 that you would save in taxes. However, once you start taking distributions, Kuda, and let's say you're taking 50, 60,000 a year out, you're going to give back, let's say it's 60,000 a year, 18 to 20 in taxes, which means that what you saved in 30 years, you'll give back in 3. And everything else is a profit for the government, right?
Wow.
So education's important. I'm not saying the 401k is good, bad, or indifferent. What I'm saying is in the overall financial mosaic, it has its proper place, and the place is you want to look at the fees inside of it. You want to look at all the investment choice, the menus that you have on how you're going to put the money, get with a professional or fiduciary that can really take you through that process. And do you want to go to the match? Do you want to go past the match? Do you want to do the max contribution? Once again, that's based on cash flow and taking a clinical look at money in, money out and what your world looks like based on your own economic philosophy.
Wow. I bet a lot of people didn't know about the whole, taxation thing. I think for me, the key thing there is how quickly, those savings, dry up once you start taking money out, right? You spend 30 years saving, and it only takes 3 years for those savings to evaporate. So it's something really for individuals to consider. So I think, the key point here is that it's on an individual basis. You want to take a look at your cash flow, but there are so many other instruments and vehicles out there beyond the 401k that you can explore, that you just need to get yourself educated around and get the right people around you, the fiduciaries, financial advisors that can really help you with your situation and your financial goal. Now,
100%. Yep.
The next question we got was, how do I set financial goals and get started with money management? So I'm assuming this person, they know they have to set goals around their money. They haven't really started. What would be that first step you could tell them to take to get started?
Another great question. Let's just go in general terms. The thought would be to pay yourself first and save anywhere between 15 to 20% of whatever your income is, right? And begin to discipline in that saving space. Once you discipline and you're starting to save that money, it's not a complicated thing to open up an account and get with a money manager and figure out how to take that money and deploy it into a portfolio that would be diversified within and amongst asset classes.
That's super interesting. What about how do I create a financial plan? So, you know, what's a financial plan? First of all, how do I create it? Are there any tools, any recommendations on how we get started on that?
Sure. So once again, remember in the beginning when I spoke about here at Epic, what we do is whenever somebody comes in, we're going to sit down and ask a lot of questions. And the questions are going to be based on what the person that's coming in the front door, what their goals and objectives are, not only financially, but it's important for us to understand what your life is, what business you're in, who your accountant is, who your estate attorney is. We want to make sure that we create a space where all the professionals are on the same page so they can help in the decision making that has you, the client's best interest, not each individual professional's sole point of view, right? So that's where we help folks build out their own personal financial website. And through proper questions and understanding what, Kuda, if I'm to say to you to figure out what your economic philosophy is, your philosophy may be different than Joe the plumber around the corner, right? Two beautiful souls, but different economic philosophies. Kids, no kids, tuitions, no tuitions, moving state to state, alternative investments, meaning not everything could be in the market. People may want to buy real estate or people may want to buy gold and silver. So it's important to understand the philosophy first, the monthly savings discipline, the family tree, so to speak, and then just create plans accordingly. So, you have taxes, you have inflation, you have what do the fees look like on portfolios? What is the advisor charging you for the visit, if anything? All these different things. And I know, because it breaks my heart. I came from a middle-class background, and I know that there's a lot of people that just don't know how to get started, and they have fears that are holding them back to try and figure out what the first step is. And the first step is savings, and the second step is interview teams and interview people and go with what sits and fits that's tied to your core value.
That's great. You spoke about something that I want to touch on real quick, which is your background.
Yeah.
So I'm going to play a short clip, and take you down memory lane, but also so that the community can really get to know where you came from, and perhaps you can even get to tell us the journey of how you landed where you are today. Okay?
Look at this video.
So, all right, thank you very much. My name is Rob Gill. I was born and raised in Bayonne, New Jersey. It's in New Jersey, you can hear by my accent. I'm the son of a police officer. My dad worked 3 jobs. My mom stayed at home. She was a domestic engineer. I have three siblings, 2 older sisters and an older brother. I come from a blue-collar background. And from day one, I never understood money. I didn't even know what it meant. I didn't know how it was used. My parents were not educated financially at all. I remember that maybe in my early teens, you would open up one of the dresser drawers and there'd be a bunch of lottery tickets in there that my dad would play every day, So when you think of marketing and you think $1 in a dream, I began as I got older to say, wow, imagine if he took that same money and invested it. And imagine if that same money earned a rate of return over 10, 20, 30 years, what that would look like by the time, he passed away, rest in peace, which was 10 years ago. So for me, my why getting into college and thereafter was to really understand and educate financially what money really meant. And money's portable power, right? It's not a bunch of different pieces of paper with, presidential faces on it. It's a way of going from here to there. And if you have a proper relationship with money and you tap into the resources in your life, what begins to happen is a bunch of wonderful things and you could elevate. So I just wanted to kind of start off with that.
Wow. So you remember that talk in Utah on Chris Cross stage where you were talking about, your upbringing. So do you just want to walk us through how you went from that upbringing in Bayonne, New Jersey, to Rob Gill today, who has Epic Wealth Management and is making so much impact in a lot of people's lives by helping them financially?
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that video. Just brought me back. Yeah, like I grew up in Bayonne, which is North Jersey. It's Hudson County. There's about 75,000 people in a 3 mile. It's a peninsula, and everybody knew everybody's business. A lot of the things that I carry today are what I learned in that schoolyard that I grew up in, and everything was very, very competitive, blue collar. There was a lot of firemen, police, small business owners. My idea of rich was like somebody having a built-in pool in their backyard, or if they drive the Mercedes. The thought of someone having like a house and then a beach house was like crazy to me. And my family did, listen, they did the best they can. I was the youngest of four. I think for me, between me and the next youngest, there was like a fall off. Like my parents, I think, kind of were just tired. You know what I mean? So I was kind of left. I'm not saying I was abandoned, but I didn't have to be home at 5 o'clock. I was always out playing sports, getting into certain kind of troubles back then, but I was always looking for more. I always wanted more. And I never understood conventional thinking ever. And my dad worked real hard. He worked 3 jobs, and his idea of like retirement and success was like spending a lot of money on the lottery tickets, $1 in a dream. I remember we lived right by Staten Island, so we're in New Jersey, but he'd go over the Bayonne Bridge to Staten Island to play the New York Lotto, right? This is like in the early 80s, right? So, I knew then that it just wasn't the right thing. Like I knew that, there was no control. I remember thinking like, hey man, I had my own paper out in 5th, 6th, 7th grade. I think I saved like $900. And my older brother, who I love, he did so many different things, but I had to like use my money to buy him suits for his job on Wall Street, right? That's still in my nervous system. And it was amazing that the mindset that I grew up in around money was so scarce. And it's not until and it didn't happen then, but my first step into Tony was July 2017. I went by myself at a UPW. And then as I got surrounded by Sean and everybody else, 18 into 19, there was still a scarce mindset around money, but although it was different. So I did have success along the way. But I really think once COVID happened and I dug deep into principles and asking empowering questions on a daily basis, and I really began to like double and triple down in that space, Kuda, that I understood the difference between an abundant mindset versus a scarce mindset. Mm-hmm. And the corner that we've turned here in the last 9 months has been incredible.
So I have a question for you. One of the questions that was asked by our community is, how do I handle fear and make smart money moves during the pandemic?
Yeah. What can I learn from this while having fun, building congruent energy, and putting myself in a position to prosper by doing proper savings? So what can I learn from this while having fun, putting myself in a position to prosper by properly saving money on a monthly basis? Every single day and every single way I grow stronger and stronger. Every single day and every single way I grow stronger and stronger. What about this situation can I grow in so the next time it comes up, I'll be ready and flexible to take advantage of opportunities? How can I improve today from yesterday? What can I do better today than I did yesterday that will give me momentum going forward for tomorrow? These are questions I never asked myself. What do I love about this situation? Why do I love that about that situation? What is it particularly that I love about this situation?
That's interesting. And
empowering questions.
Yeah. And one of the things that I see is that, a lot of people, fear comes in because of debt. And one of the questions that we got from the goal-getter community is, what are the best ways for getting debt-free, right? Because debt it's kind of like shackles that hold you down. You're trying to save, but you have these credit cards, revolving credit that you have to pay, and the interest builds up. So now all the money is going to pay off the debt. So what would be some of the tips you can share of the best ways to eliminate debt?
Yep. So thank you. Number one, as what a beautiful question. Debt is a mindset, right? Debt is something that keeps us in scarcity, right? So the first thing we would need to do is you would have to sit down and figure out a cash flow analysis. How much money is coming in? How much money is going out? That's number one. Number two, on what's going out, what can you cut off or what can you reduce? Do you go out to eat 8 times a week? Reduce it to, 8 times a month, reduce it to 4 times a month. Do you drive more than you have to from a gas perspective? What is the cost of your homeowners and auto insurance? For example, if you increase the deductible, right, you may pay less on the homeowners and auto, right? So there's little things where you could do to create savings plans, but you can only do that. It's like if you look at a map, Kuda, and you know where you want to go on that map, but you can't get there unless you truly know where you are and you're honest about that. And that's where a full cash flow analysis comes into play. And then from there, once you do a cash flow analysis, you can create the budget. And once you do the savings or the debt reduction with that budget, it's like a habit. Once it's in your nervous system, it becomes automatic pilot. You just got to break through that first 30 days.
That's interesting. So connected to debt, right, is your credit score, right? Because obviously it's a calculation of kind of like your, debt to income ratio and things like that. One of our community members had the question of, other than the obvious save, what are good ways to increase, my credit score? So you want to get your credit score up because maybe you want to buy a house or, there are other things that you want to do and your credit score is critical for that. Are there any things that you can advise people to really think through?
Yes, and I can. And by the way, if anyone has any private questions, we do have we have people in the team that can handle that if they want to have a one-on-one call about that specifically. But in general terms, you want your usage to be below 30% on average. So if you look at like Experian and your credit report, and it's like it says 80% usage of your credit, well, that's going to keep your score at a certain point. So you want to get it below. You don't want to cancel cards. You just want to get it below. A rule of thumb would be about 30% usage.
Got it. So let's say, you do have that extra cash, right?
Yep.
And you make the decision to save. Where should people save? How should they do it? Are there any vehicles you would recommend in terms of savings of, for people? So how much should I save and where should I save it? Any thoughts and tips there?
Yes, great question. So once you create that budget, and you know that you're saving X amount a month, let's say it's 2,000-3,000, whatever the number could be, you're now saving money. I would not say, hey, take the whole 2,000 or 3,000 and pay off the debt. I would do a blend, like pay down the debt, but at the same time, before you do that, earmark a certain percentage of that for your own personal savings, right? And there's different vehicles that you could save money in, whether it's a checking or savings account. Some people like to save it through insurance strategies, high cash value insurance policies specifically, or more importantly, these blended bank on your own, create your own bank. You could do that as well. But you also want to make sure that some of these savings is liquid, but you want to kind of take whatever your monthly savings is, always knock down debt, and at the same time, build a savings account.
That's interesting. So you want the dual effect where you're knocking debt and also you're building your small critical mass.
Yes.
That's really cool. Yeah. I have this theory, and I wrote it in my book that just got published a few months ago, The Spear Method. I talk about 3 stages, and I actually learned it from a gentleman called Ron Cordes. He's the guy who started the Cordes Foundation. And he says that there's stage number 1 where you learn, right? So the first third of your life, you're learning. So, when you're a kid, you go to school, college, whatever. And then you get into your second phase, which is your earning, right? When you start working until you retire, right? So that's second phase. So it's learn, earn, and then the last one is return. When you retire. So let's talk about retirement a little bit, because a lot of people, as they get older, they're thinking like, oh yeah, I'm 1 year closer to retirement and things like that. So let's really shift our discussion to maybe a little bit about retirement. So first of all, how much money do I need to retire, right?
It's a moving target. It's a moving target. So great question. Let me talk a little bit about the word retirement. So retirement is something that I just don't think exists anymore. And what do I mean by that? I think that, according to the College of Financial Planning, they'll say the NRA, the normal retirement age is 65. But I don't think people nowadays with technology, Zoom, internet, e-commerce, people may retire from one job, but that doesn't mean that they can't do something else in their life as well, right? And I bring this up because, we in this country, in America, we have these underfunded and unfunded liabilities, these federal pensions, state pensions, that goes into the trillions of dollars that at any given point, the government can come knocking on the door. There's no calamity bell. And let's say Mr. and Mrs. Joe retirement was normally getting $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month on their pension. They could come in and say, listen, we have to reduce the amount you're getting, right? So I think that if we really understand that the world is different, there's a new normal. And Kuda, you're a bright dude. You even know that the monetary policy is going to change. We could be living in a world 20 years from now that's not even about dollars and cents. It's with blockchain and all the other stuff that we've learned in these incubators, that the money could change itself. I think in the 1930s or 40s it changed, right? So it changes every 100 or 200 years. So I think for the fact that humans are living longer, right, based on technology, and I think that if we look at the word retirement, how much do I need in retirement? The one thing we never want to do is meet your needs. We want to exceed your wants. And for us to be able to do that, once again, it's a full cash flow analysis. It's a proper plan, because you may say, look, I need $10,000 a month in retirement, but are you thinking about what are the taxes on that? And right now, if you're 35, $10,000 a month when you're 65 is going to feel like, because of inflation, $6,000 a month in your pocket. Ready? Because money is worth less every year. Now, privately, you did planning with us, so you're going to be protected from all the things I just mentioned. However, when it comes to really for all the good folks that are out there listening right now, retirement is something that I just don't think exists anymore. Like, I think that there's retirement from one career, but a lot of folks are going to do other careers. And I'm saying it all the time right now.
So let's shift into like another question, right? Which is, how do I create sustainable retirement income? So like, let's say that day comes where you can't work anymore.
Yeah.
How do I plan for that day so that I have sustainable income once I've stopped working? Beautiful. So defining the word retirement as kind of like whatever day you stop working, either voluntarily or involuntarily, having that, pot of gold, if you want to call it, yep, that can help sustain your lifestyle. How do I create that?
Yeah, great question. So, and remember, when we get to retirement and we have a pension because we were firemen, doesn't mean we can't take money out of that pension while we're working another job. Just so we're on the same page with that. But to your point, it's always important, once again, that there's an investment philosophy first. You want to be educated. It's important when you sit down with your team of planners, because they work for you. You don't work for them, right? It's your money. You want to make sure that you're diversified, not only just if you have a 401k and that's diversified, but within and amongst the asset classes. Real estate's an asset class, gold and silver is an asset class, your 401k is an asset class, life insurance is an asset class. So you want to be able to have diversification, but you also want to be able to monitor and measure all this on your own personal financial website, because there's nothing as constant as change, right? That we know that everything changes. And to plan, Tony Robbins talks about this all the time. He doesn't really plan past 3 years in advance anymore, because things are always changing, right? So I believe in that wholeheartedly. Now, what can't change is how much you're saving on a monthly basis. What can change is whatever you're saving, where you're going to deploy that into what opportunity.
That's interesting. So I think the key takeaway here is making sure that you have a team of people who are always looking into what your goals and dreams are and helping implement strategies to make sure that by the time maybe that income stops coming in because you've left your job or something happened, you have money in place to maintain your lifestyle once you're in retirement.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about insurance, right? Because you were talking about asset classes, you talked about 401ks and all these different things. And insurance is one form of asset class that I really started learning about and started kind of like pursuing. But one of the things that people might not really know is that there are different forms of insurance, right? There's term, universal, whole life. So, can you just walk me through each one of those,
Yeah.
pros and cons, and what you would probably recommend for someone who's starting out?
Beautiful question. And by the way, when we get to the universal part, I'll have Eddie jump on for that because he is a subject matter mastery expert in all things insurance. But look, term insurance is temporary insurance, meaning you buy. It's packaged beautifully. If you are an owner of the carriers that push term insurance, they 99% of the time don't pay out a death claim, meaning millions and millions and millions of people buy term and it's only for a certain amount of term. And then they typically outlive that term. So the policy cancels, which means the insurance company is not paying a death benefit. So look, if you're just starting out, it's good, right? It's always good to have any kind of protection and coverage no matter what. But it's the most inefficient kind of insurance that you could think of. And later on can cost you so much more money by not having properly insurance planning in place, right? So, you may deal with the CFP. There's a guy, and I'm not going to mention his name, so I don't want to give him a plug, but I'm a big fan because all he does on LinkedIn is make fun of insurance agents. Now, meanwhile, I could tear his world apart and talk about what he does. I don't do that, but I like he makes fun of the traditional insurance agent because the way they're typically brought up in the business, Kuda, is not good for them. It's like, hey, let me find this kid that's coming out of college that comes from a rich area whose mom and dad have influence. He could give us 100 referrals and we'll do business off those 100 people. But then in the end, he's really not being taught the business. And eventually in the insurance space, 95% of agents fail, right? They fail out of the business, but the client stays with the insurance company. To your point, term insurance, it is temporary insurance. It's good just to have. You'd always want to be able to convert that once you start making money. Whole life is on the surface boring. It's slow and steady, but think of a tidal wave, and I don't mean one that like just comes crashing in and destroys the island in 3 seconds. Think of the one where all the water goes out, right? And then it's like 8 a.m. and the waves are coming in, and then it's like 9:30, and now all of a sudden, like the first block there's water on the street. Then it's like 12 o'clock. It's now the cars are underwater. Then it's like 10 o'clock at night. Like the wave went all the way to like a half a mile in, maybe a mile in, right? And that's how I view whole life insurance, meaning it's not the splash of a rock in a lake, but it's the ripple. And as the ripple gets bigger and bigger, because you have guarantees within the contract by state law and by contract, you have tax efficient growth and tax-free distribution up to basis. And then if you want to maintain tax-free status, you borrow, right? It gives you the ability, while they call it a Swiss Army knife for a reason, while you're using it and funding it, you could borrow from the policy and buy other investments and maybe even have those investments pay the policy back. So you create all these different rates of return off the same dollar bill. And if you do it consistently and constructively with a long-term viewpoint, it could be one of the greatest things you do because that death benefit, remember, a term death benefit expires, so you don't get to use that in life. But the death benefit on a whole life policy never dies until you die. But that means whatever your death benefit is, if you look at other assets in your world, you could spend those down knowing the death benefit's going to replace whatever you spent down. And in life, you could enjoy your wealth with your family, and then the death benefit is going to replace everything you spent down.
Mm.
So, Ed, why don't you slide over? So Ed's going to talk about the universal life and what that looks like. And if it's layered in with whole life, once in a while, there's some good opportunities there. But in general terms, if you don't mind.
So
And they want to know who you are, Eddie Gardner.
Yeah, so I'm Eddie Gardner, partners here with Rob Gill. One of the types of insurance, so term is a temporary type of insurance, whole life being a permanent. There is another type of insurance, and this third class is universal life, which is also meant to be a permanent insurance. But in universal life, there's a number of subsets. So when we look at universal life, the way I like to think of it first is it's kind of like a permanent term insurance. Doesn't build any cash value. The death benefit never grows. You pay the premiums forever. And when that policy, when you expire, the policy pays a benefit to your family or whoever that might be. From there, we have some different types. So there's a indexed universal life and a variable universal life policy. And the idea here is part of that premium that comes in, that pays the death benefit portion. The other part of the premium that comes in goes into a bucket that's either sit in the general fund of the insurance company's account and is credited based on an index, or it's put into a separate account that's invested for you. Think about mutual funds and that sort of stuff, where it fluctuates with whatever the stock market does. There's a number of different types of options when it comes to universal Kuda, but all good options, right?
Yeah.
Got it. So if I'm hearing right, I think of the three, whole life is probably, let's say it's kind of like a average scenario. Whole life is probably the better one of the three, right? Given how the three have been described.
Yeah, whole life is where the magic is, right? Whole life is, I'm not saying an IUL is gimmicky, but there's certain things that have to happen for that to perform optimally. That doesn't have to happen within the space of whole life. And by the way, folks, that was the mighty Edward Gardner, just so you know. Eddie's like, he's just like waves in the ocean. He just keeps coming nonstop, just keeps coming. And you don't see him coming either. He's waves in the ocean at night, Kuda.
I know. Eddie is really awesome. Now let's talk about one more asset class before we close this out, and it is the almighty real estate, right?
Kuda loves it.
Yeah. So what is the best way to invest in real estate? Like, a lot of people want to get into the real estate game, but they're scared, mainly because they don't really know how to get in, or they think about all the down payments and things like that. So how can you get into the real estate game, leveraging some of the other asset classes and do it in a way where you can actually create wealth?
Yeah, once again, great question. And here at Epic, just for purposes of this call, we don't sell real estate. However, I think for any individual out there that is entrepreneurial in nature and is always looking to educate and create wealth, generational wealth and opportunity, real estate is a phenomenal turbocharger. It's important that you do a lot of reading first. There's some books to read. But if you don't like to read, you could really get educated on YouTube, whether it's, if you look at the world of Grant Cardone, which is a little fast for someone just to jump in and just get their feet wet. Obviously I love Chris's books, Chris Crone, by the way. I love how Chris approaches real estate. Everything, he makes it very clear is long-term. And for all the folks on the call right now or watching this, the goal for real estate as an investor, if you're educated and it's long-term, is you'd like to be able to get 4 different rates of return off of the same dollar. Meaning, if anyone buys a piece of property as an investment, you want to make sure, you can't guarantee that it's going to go higher, but you'd like to buy a property today that if you sell it 10 years from now, it's worth more than what you bought it for, right? You also want to make sure that you get a good cap rate, meaning What is the cost of the property? What is the cost of the mortgage? What rent are you charging? And is there positive cash flow? So that's another rate of return, right? The third rate of return would be, and this is where you talk to your accountants and your planning team, you'd like to depreciate that asset on your tax return, right? So there is a lot of depreciation rules out there that allow you to keep your money back in your pocket where it belongs. And last but not least, whenever you have a real estate property and there's a mortgage and you're not doing standard deductions and it's inside of an LLC, you get a mortgage interest write-off. So the goal would be not to get one rate of return, but 4 different rates of rate of return off of each property you buy.
That's amazing. So we just got a comment, and one of the comments is that, are there any digital handouts for those 3 types of insurance? So if they are, let us know. If not, we can definitely share it in the go-getter groups. But do you guys have those type of resources, Rob?
Yeah, Eddie will reach out to you direct with all that stuff and connect you with anybody that we need. For whatever you do. Yep.
Perfect. So we will make sure that we get a handout with the 3 different types of insurances, and we'll put it in the This Is My Era Go-Getter community, and it will be courtesy of the Epic Financial Strategies group, who have been kind enough to really spend the afternoon with us today. So, Rob, where can people find you? How can people get connected if they had questions? Tell us how they get in touch with you.
So they could go to Epic Financial Strategies, epicfinancialstrategies.co, not .com, but .co, epicfinancialstrategies.co, if they want to check out the website. We would love for anybody to go on YouTube and go to Epic Financial Strategies and click the subscribe button, because we are bringing educational videos every day. We have no other expectation, just to provide education and value. That would mean the world to us. And, on either on YouTube or on the website, if you want to contact us, you can contact us.
Yeah. And, we've been talking to the Epic team, and we're going to bring something unique and different for our go-getter community. So more details to come.
Are we giving a spoiler alert?
Yeah. It's a spoiler alert. I want people to be ready, because I really think that financial education is really, really key. And I want every go-getter within our community to be able to really succeed in that area of life. So more to come on that. But we really want to make sure that you're armed with really good quality information. You can also do your own research if you need to, but we want to make sure that we provide value to you go-getters, because we want to see you crush your goals. So, Rob, can you just close out by maybe sharing with us one quote you live by?
Yeah, for all you go-getters out there, if you change your style up, watch the money pile up.
That's an amazing one. So thank you so much, Rob. I really appreciate the time, and keep crushing it. And thank you so much for all the financial tips and for really adding value to the go-getter community. Let's keep crushing it. And this is our era, and we're only one goal away from achieving our dreams.
Kuda, thank you so much. A major shout out to Ruth.
All right. So there you have it, guys. Rob Gill from Epic Financial Services was with us today. I hope you gained so much value that you can apply to your financial journeys. And we're going to be doing more of these types of presentations where either myself, Michelle, or Ruth will bring in a subject matter expert, and we'll really go deep in one area of life. So this month, we want to focus on finance. We're getting into November, where a lot of spending is going to be happening, and with the holidays. So we just want to make sure that you're really armed with a lot of insight and knowledge on how you can make good financial decisions. But more importantly, thinking about your future, right? How can you start making decisions right now around your savings, your spending, and investing that will really set you up for an amazing future up ahead? So thank you so much for joining this live, and have a wonderful day. Happy Friday, and you're only one goal away.